What's up? I'm back. In this segment, I'm going to talk about the diet of alchemists. Some people call it the Azoth diet. Um, and I'm going to talk about a man called Lee Chung-Yuen, famous dude. Um, he was a guy who the Chinese government confirmed lived to be 256 years old. Now, the only reason why I'm making this video on him is because I've seen a lot of people on Facebook putting stuff up about him. And I always loved the dude because he's a guy, he's one of the first immortals I ever heard about. So he was a huge inspiration in my work. I would probably say the biggest, especially even as my work as a healer. The thing about Lee Chung Yun though is when you go into information about him, it was that in a sense, it's true what they say, but it's much more to that. So when you look him up, they would say he was a martial artist, he was a herbalist, and yes, the age. Everybody talks about it. 256 years old, he outlived 23 wives. In actuality, he was an alchemist healer, which is a big difference. Alchemical healers are much different than normal healers. It's a big difference. So when he was an alchemical healer, he didn't deal with metal alchemy, so he dealt with plant alchemy, which is different than traditional herbalism. Very important concept to understand. The reason why it's an important concept to understand because in a lot of different ways, plant alchemy tends to probably, not even probably, it's more effective than regular herbalism. So when you're studying his life and trying to copy his methods, you have to understand that. If you don't understand that, you're definitely not going to live to be 256 years old. You probably wouldn't live to be 120 years old. It's interesting because one of the main things that people miss about this gentleman is that he practiced the Azoth diet or the diet of the alchemist, which be very different than the diets a lot of other people use. Like even the diets that mainstream people in the holistic community would say, they would say alkaline, mostly alkaline diet, no absolutely no meat. They even get sometimes finicky about even some vegetables that you eat. Whereas the chemical diet, definitely not that extreme. Part of the reason why that is because um, human beings in general, we live in an environment that sometimes doesn't constitute certain things or certain methods that people use. People use a method that people who live in the mountains, monks, used a long time ago, where the world was much different. So there's a lot of people in the world kind of sometimes see that, damn, they kind of need meat sometimes. And I'm not one of those people who advocate a lot of meat. I actually think that when I hear, because sometimes, to be honest, in a lot of the real alchemist communities, they really get crazy about people, like a lot of the holistic healers, and people, they say that they're too extreme. But I'm kind of neutral on that. I say, I don't. You could say they're extreme, but I would say more. It's more like people are so acid right now. People's lifestyles are so messed up. You have to push vegetarianism to them. Even myself, a lot of videos before I made this channel, um, I would push vegetarianism, and I still do for the most part because I think that first of all, the way the animals are treated is terrible, and I think that sometimes this doesn't get said. If you push vegetarianism because of how the way the animals are treated, then that's different because they go through a lot of trauma. They're shot with antibiotics that you eat that you consume when you eat the animals. Some of the chickens are like never see sunlight. They're born with no beaks. I mean, they're born in terrible conditions that if you really saw it, went to a chicken farm, you would never want to eat that meat. So in a lot of ways, sometimes I would say, for the most part, that if I say don't eat meat, a lot of it is because of how it's treated and how it's used today, which is a big difference than saying it's totally unhealthy. You're gonna die if you eat it. Because I mean, they were Aborigines, they were Native Americans who ate meat and they were healthy. So in a way, but the meat that they were eating was different. If you hunting, you eating game meat because they're really with the alchemist diet or Azov diet. The reason why I would still push um, mostly eating vegetables is because that diet says to eat game meat. For those who don't know, game meat means when you hunt the animal, you eat it, right? Most of you guys don't hunt, myself included, so it becomes very hard to follow that line for line. So what happens most of the time is that you have to kind of compromise. But to those who don't know what the Azov diet will be, it's eating seasonally. So this means that Lee Chung-Yun, one of the ways he lived to be so long, so old, he ate meat once a year, one season a year, which is the winter time. So in the fall, in the spring, and in the summer, he didn't eat meat. If it makes sense, what happens? Wintertime comes, your body it has like a lot of stress on it because of the cold temperature. Eating meat at times grounds you, right? So he ate meat in wintertime. Then in spring, he ate vegetables. Spring is when everything is growing, like like plants are coming out of hibernation. Vegetables are better for that, mostly. So he ate more vegetables in the spring. So he ate primarily vegetables in the spring. And in the summertime, he ate more fruit, which is not even him. The Azoth diet says you eat more fruit. In the fall, you eat things that come from the ground, like more grounded vegetation. So you talk about yams, potatoes. A lot of y'all don't like carrots, but things like that come from the ground. Now, a lot of times people are going to say, they're going to get into debates about carrots. Potatoes definitely is poisonous to most people. And what any alchemist will tell somebody is this: if you're coming from the world, you're probably sick. If you're sick, you should eat alkaline. Right? If you're a regular person in the Matrix, you better have a little bit of time where you go strictly vegetarian. Don't even do the Azoth diet. The Azoth diet comes when you become more grounded. And when you finish cleaning yourself, what you do then is you practice balance. That's the difference. So, a regular person, follow the holistic community beginning, follow it, get your game up, then do the Azoth diet. That's the difference. Big difference. And I think what happens is people don't understand is that sometimes when you are practicing purely alkalinity, what normally happens is human beings, when you're purely alkaline, the purely alkaline method, it can reverse physical viruses. What happens is you trade physical virus for mental stability. When people say mental stability, what does that mean? It means that if you purely alkaline 100% of the time, especially in this environment that we live in, what normally starts to happen is you become less grounded. You become a space cadet, or you can't really relate to the world. This is why sometimes a lot of people who practice that lifestyle, they're not really grounded, or can't really communicate, or can't really relate to the people around them. Then that same person would say, well, the people around them are, garbage, or, they'll call them all type of names, sleeping zombies, stuff like that. But most of the time, the reason why is the case is because alkalinity came in for spiritual work. What does that mean? It was the monks, spiritual masters practiced that at one time. They practiced it during certain times. Because if you really pay attention, to be honest, I'm only saying the alchemist diet, or the Azov diet, it's only eating meat one season a year. To a regular person looking at you, they're gonna say that you're a vegetarian. Let's be real. A regular person in the Matrix, you only eat meat in the wintertime. Summertime, springtime, and fall comes, you don't eat meat. They're gonna say they're gonna say that you're a vegetarian. So a lot of times we argue about semantics, and that's what happened. Somebody would look at this video and they would say, I'm pushing eating meat. Right? That's what they would say. Like I'm saying be a straight up meat eater. And then first of all, to be honest, most of the meat the Azov diet would probably recommend would probably be fish most of the time. Um, Usually, if you're not eating game meat, you're eating fish. It's just most people are not hunting. I mean, you're probably gonna be eating fish. That's usually as meat as we get. If you could get game, if you eat game meat, then go ahead. More power to you. But that's kind of rare in these days and times. Um, but I would always say though, the reason why alchemists have that approach to diet is because they know that you have to be balanced. So if you can't relate to people around you, if you're only in space, because alkalinity, people always talk about it for um, not having sickness or not having disease, but it was first designed because it was designed for spiritual work. So the guy called Lee Ching-Yuen, what did he do? When he was making his elixirs, he was alkaline. And he was able to, because the plant alchemist, you know how you have all these people talk about changing lead into gold? You're changing the nature of the plants too. So when he was making his formulas, he had to be in an alkaline state. That's the reason why he was alkaline so long. It was later on that people saw that, oh wow, of course, if you got viruses in your body, you're not going to be able to do spiritual work. So of course, alkalinity can make you healthy to a certain extent. But what happens is if it's too imbalanced, you trade mental stability, and you can't really relate to the world. So when he ate meat once season that of a year, it was grounding him into his environment, which will become important later on. So as of diet, have a little bit about it written in the description. Check it out. Till next time, peace.